Hello world! Welcome to all of my new subscribers and viewers. It's taken me about a year to get picked up by the algorithm here on YouTube, especially since I started uploading on a niche topic with a wide appeal. Pro tip. Not only did you all break through the 1,000 subscriber threshold and unleash the potential of this channel, you broke through the f***ing roof! Thank you. Now we are connected. Inseparable. Powerful. Unstoppable. We're going to create stuff no one has ever seen because we're going to do it differently. Our objective is to make the creative process smoother, easier for anyone to do with minimal materials and more open-ended. And I'm finally going to get the hell out of here! This is a quick transmission where I want to demystify and explain the layout of the Atmega328p and the PU version, which is basically the updated version with hardly any changes at all to it. The Atmega328p is the popular microcontroller chip found on the Arduino Uno. Nearly everything you intend to do with an Arduino, you can do with just the chip and save a ton of money while making things much smaller. It's time to take off the training wheels. Robotics and electronics is too complicated and too hard. That's why I'm here, to help you out. Because I'm not an engineer, I learned on my own. And I'm not boring. This will help you follow what I'm doing down here, and you can follow along. Anything you learn about this chip and how to program it is going to help you learn any other chip, such as the Raspberry Pi, the PIC line. It doesn't matter where you start in learning how to code electronic chips and computers. It only matters that you start and stick with it. Then you can figure out where you want to go from there. I show you how to ditch the Arduino and use only the chip and program it in the badass C language, which is the basis of most modern programming languages and technology. It is very useful even in 2020 and beyond your lifetime. The most confusing and important information you need to know is what the chip can do and the functions of its various pins. Once you study the simple layout, you will know which pins to use for different jobs you want done, like moving motors, glowing LEDs, etc. On the Atmega328p, you can see we have 28 pins which are numbered from the top left and traces the rest of the numbers in a U shape through the bottom and to the right and back up to the top. The good news is, you don't really need to know these numbers, but it's good to know about it. What you do need to know are the pins and their different capabilities. Many of these pins are connected to complex circuits and other small chip-like configurations inside. This is why the pins can't do everything on every pin and can only do some things. First, notice there are 3 streets on our chip: B Street, C Street, and D Street. On these streets are the houses. In these houses, there are switches which we turn on just like the light switches in your house. These turn on machines that do work for us. Who would have thought? The layout is confusing and frustrating at first, but it just takes some quiet study time to get it. Our chip has 6 pulse width modulation enabled pins. This means there is hardware inside the chip that is hardwired to these pins to let you send out pulses of electricity at a frequency you choose for a duration that you choose. The best part about it is while the frequency can remain the same, the duration can vary each loop the chip goes through. This is how LEDs are glowed on and off. This is also how servo motors are moved and how DC motors can be sped up and slowed down instead of just turning on and off. Simple, but fascinating. Pulse width modulation, or PWM for short, is the most important and useful function of these chips. Take the time to learn it. You can see on B Street we have 8 pins. They start with 0 but don't ask me why they are where they are. I'm sure Atmel knew exactly what they were doing. Remember, electromagnetic forces can disrupt neighboring wiring and hardware, so just accept where everything is and get used to it. B Street has 3 PWM pins. D Street has 8 pins which start with 0 and also have 3 PWM enabled pins. When you use PWM, you will often be using these OC number letter terms in your code. They are like containers for whatever value you want to send out on those PWM pins, just like an Amazon box that delivers something to your door. Notice C Street. 6 of the 7 houses on C Street work with the analog to digital converter, which you will use with potentiometers. You know, volume knobs and stuff like that. It's also where you will hook up a lot of sensors that interpret the analog world and translate it into digital values. When using the ADC, you will be supplying a ground voltage and reference, so the ADC has a voltage to compare the analog data it is receiving. Sometimes you will code the ADC to refer to an internal voltage for reference. Don't worry, I'll let you know as we go. We can supply this particular chip with 3 to 12 volts. I usually stick with 5 to the VCC pin, which is the 7th pin down from the top left. If you're using a different chip, make sure to double check your layout so you get it right. Under that, we hook up our ground wire. If you have no idea what that means, VCC is the red wire in a battery pack and ground is the black wire. Coloring may differ, but this is generally the rules that people tend to follow. Some call it the plus and minus, but that is still up for debate. Don't worry, we will go there someday. For now, let's stick with the chip. The chip must have electricity flowing through it when programming it. Remember that. Next, you will see the receive and transmit pins at the top left on D Street. This is where you can hook up 2 wires to communicate with a PC or other 2-wire serial communication capable device. It's simple, it's minimal, and you will be using it especially when you want to see your chip interpret values through the ADC and print them to your monitor. The crystal oscillators that are on the Arduino board go on pins PB6 and PB7. These let the chip run faster than its maximum 8 MHz, all the way up to 16 MHz. Both are very high speeds, and I don't recommend you start using crystal oscillators. It's totally overkill, so we're not going to use them. Higher frequency running chips like 16 MHz will drink more battery juice. If you were going to save a lot of battery on something you build, you could set the fuse bits when you flash your program and make the chip run at 1 MHz or something slow like that. Think of the chip speed like a fan. If your fan is running faster, it needs more electricity. If it runs slower with less torque and speed, it doesn't need much electricity. Simple. I told you this was easy. The last thing you need to know is which pins you connect to your USB programmer when flashing your hex file to your chip, if you follow the way I do it and you want to do it the way I do it. Because it's badass. It's hot!
Oh, that's hot.
The top left is our reset line that signals the chip into programmable mode. VCC and ground are here. The last 3 are our serial clock, which is a dedicated line synchronizing with other devices, master in, slave out, and master out, slave in. These are often used with a serial clock pin to connect with SPI and I2C enabled devices, which can communicate faster and more accurately than traditional serial connections that use the receive and transmit lines. They are more accurate and can do more data, but they require more wiring. They take up more pins. It sounds like a lot, but that's pretty much it. Come back to this review often, and remember, this will not only demystify the layout and capabilities of this chip, but other chips and even other brands of chips. Don't leave yet. Coming up right after this, I'm going to show you how to code a servo and move it with a joystick and program it all in the C language. Stay grounded.